Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Stephen Williams, founder and president of the creditrepairshop.com. Yes, that's me over in the window in the top right or top left of your computer. And we're going to talk today. I have a lot of questions about the letters that are going out from debt collection companies. And there was another release here. I can't show it on there, can't show the company, but I don't know if you can see that number. It's kind of light, but they have released. This is now the biggest number. I think the biggest that I had saw before this was like $124 million. The release of debt that is about to hit next month from just one company is 157 million 600,000 and some change. $157 million in debt is about to be released into the market. This is a combine of a lot of different loans, but it was one company or one lender that was lending in all of these different markets. $157 million. $157 million. That's a lot. So I'm making this video because I get a lot of questions about how the next step with if you happen to be on that list, or you get a letter from a debt collection company about a debt that they either purchased or they're collecting for their client. What do you do next? And that's what we're going to talk about here. And I just went online and I just found a letter with this online. This is not one of my customers. This is just a debt collection company. So they posted it, so I'm going to use it. You can see that they blanked out the customers info. So number one, the first thing that you got to look for, and I always tell people, is you got to see, number one, if you even remember the debt. And then the next step, if you remember the debt, is to figure out if it's past statute of limitations. And every state is different. I wish all of the states' laws were the same, but they're not. So you have to look at your particular state's statute of limitation law for contract debt. It's something that you put your signature on. And what constitutes the statute of limitations not being what'll be work in your favor for the statute of limitations is that company cannot have done anything to try to come after you for the money. No contacts, no nothing. It's where they just left it sitting there. You'll be surprised. A lot of companies do that. A lot of companies they'll leave the where they just don't have a good collections department, and they won't go after people for the money, and they didn't sell it or get a collection company to go after it because they're mostly concentrated on their business. So that's how it could end up going past statute of limitations. And then what happens is these companies and it even happens with one of my companies, where you'll have an attorney or collection agency reach out to you and say, do you have any old debts that you haven't been able to collect? We'll collect them, and you just give us a percentage, and you'll get some of your money. And a lot of companies just say, well, I have nothing to lose. These debts have just been sitting there, and hey, go after it, and if you could get something. So the first thing that they want to do is they're going to get that debt, and they're going to try. They'll know, most of the times, they'll know that it's past statute of limitations. So they'll have a bundle of those, and they'll send out those letters, and they'll try to get you to make any type of payment, something to so they could start the whole process all over again. Even if it's $1 payment, anything, they'll try to do that. So you got to watch out for that. So when you get a letter like this, it looks like a bill. It always looks just like a bill. And if you can see here, they have the original creditor, which on this one says Sears, but you can see up top it says bonded collector. So this is saying, and especially with if you think about it, with Sears going out of business now, if you ever get anything from Sears, they most likely sold those over to a debt collection company, and a lot of those debts are not collectible if they're past statute of limitations. And also, it takes it into a realm of where you can challenge and try to get all of the information, or you have a right to get all of the information. And if Sears is out of business, that debt collector, even if it's within the statute of limitations, they may not be able to get all of the information to legally make you have to pay that debt. But you'd have to take that all the way up the chain to be able to get out of that. But let's focus on this sheet here. So we see that it's from a debt collection company. And then if you go below, you can see what the original debt is for. They do this on purpose because the way that they said it, when they say collection agency, they had that big at the top. It scares people. It does something to all of us on the inside to have someone coming after you for a debt. And then you can see where it says past due balance. And so then again, they're doing this. These letters are put together by people that know how to get people emotional about something. So all of this above is gonna remind you of who the original creditor is, but they want to scare you by saying it's a collection agency, big bad collection agency about to come after you for this money. And then you can go lower, and it says here that your Sears account has been placed with our office for collection. So now that again, that's a statement that's put there on purpose because they're trying to draw you in and make you think, hey, no matter what, you have to pay this. And then it has the collection agency's address to send the money to. Now, it has a statement below here. And if you ever had collections, and I did when I was in the 1990s, I had some collections come after me, and they didn't have this statement in here, but they started putting these statements in there so they could try to butter you up a little bit to get you to pay them. So it says, we believe you have good intentions of paying this account, and that either funds were not available at the time payment was due, or it was just it was simply overlooked. That is put in there for a reason, because first we want to scare you. Next, we want to let you see the amount with that big amount. Next, we want to go into, oh, we're on your side, so don't get scared. Just contact us or send the money. But now look at this next section that is highlighted where it says, unless within 30 days after receipt of this notice, you dispute the validity of the debt or any portion. Let me make this a little bit bigger because I got my glasses here. We'll assume that the debt is valid. So they've said all of that other stuff there. They've said all of that other stuff. And now they're going to tell you that you have a right to dispute the validity of this debt. And that's where everything I teach this, I tell people everything. This right here is the real story, because unless they have went and got a judgment for the debt, and it goes more into that when you read below there, unless they have gotten a judgment, this is wide open for interpretations, and you had opportunity to make this debt go away if you are proactive. So first, to be proactive, the step one is you would see if this debt is past statute of limitations. If it is past statute of limitations, the only thing you have to do is send them a letter with a copy of this and say, according to my state, this particular debt is past statute of limitations. I'm not legally obligated to pay it. You don't have to go into, I didn't pay it because I had trouble, I lost my job, all of this. You don't have to go into none of that. Zero. Don't open that door. No communications other than this communication here. You can call them up and let them know, and then you need to write them a letter certified stating that. I guarantee if you do that, they're going to go away. They'll probably sell it to someone else, so you need to keep that documentation and then be prepared if it comes back up again. Step one. Step two, if it's not past statute of limitations, you need to do a full validation of the debt. Because this was Sears, you need to validate to Sears, and then you need to validate to the debt collector. When you're validating to Sears, you want them to prove all of the charges and your signatures for everything that they claim you charged on that account. When it comes to the debt collector, you want to validate all of that information, make them get it from Sears, and also make them show you that they have a legal right to come after you for debt that Sears says they own. So you want them to prove the contract between those two companies, and if they purchase it, if they're assigned it from them or another debt collector, which happens a lot, or if they are collecting it directly for Sears, like they're contracted with Sears to collect it for them. You have a right to get that information. This is what happened to me. This is my story, and I've told this on other videos, but this is exactly what happened to me. When I was in the Army in 1988, I had a credit card from Citibank, and I got a collection letter years later. I didn't even know that it was a such thing as statute of limitation. It was way past statute of limitation. I think almost 13 years past statute of limitation. And I ended up challenging everything. I didn't know too much about how the process worked, but I just decided to fight. That was a big thing. I just said, I'm going to fight. And when I got to court, the first attorney that they had there was this young guy. He didn't know nothing. It was used to people not showing up to court. But I showed up and I said, well, I just don't know if this is my debt. The judge looked over at him and said, okay, prove that it is. He asked for a continuance. We stopped. And then the next court date, I came in, and they had, before that, they had sent me a stack of all of how they got the debt, because they had to prove by law how they came into getting my debt. You just can't go and take people's debts from other companies and say, hey, you got to pay me for the debt that they had. So they had to prove to me that they had a right to come after me for that money. And they sent me a big stack of people's credit. It was all these black lines, and then it had my line open for the debt that I owed to them. It was like $500. They said it was $2,500, but when you looked at that, I had actually charged like a couple of $100. They just had ballooned it up with all of these fees and all this stuff over the years. No one, when I was 18 years old, was going to give me a credit card for $2,500. But so that's what had happened. And I'm going to pause my video just for a second so I could plug my tablet in. I had to plug my tablet in. I was losing power. I thought it was in there. So no one was going to loan me any kind of money like that when I was a teenager and going into the United States Army. But long story short, they were coming after me for $2,500 because I made them prove that I owed the debt. And when they came back in, they had the top lawyer for that collection agency, the person whose name is on that collection agency's sign, the top guy. So it was me and him in court, and I'm going back and forth with him and a judge. And long story short, I ended up settling that debt for $500. They were coming after me for $2,500, but if I would have knew the statute of limitations laws, I wouldn't even have went that far. But I guess what happens is it helps me with the story for you guys, because I went further in it and I was able to make that settlement. So that it gives me a real experience story to be able to share with you. So if it is past statute of limitations and the debt collector, you have a right to see where they're positioned in the whole transaction. So if they're assigned, if they own it, or if they're contracted to collect it for the original creditor. Assigned is usually could mean that it was another collection agency assigned it to them because they're in your area. So you need to find out that whole relationship and validate the entire account, plus with the collector, validate how they have a legal right to come after you for the money. If everything, if everything checks out, you do not want to get it to go to a judgment, because if they get a judgment against you, it's going to hurt your credit more, and it's going to make it harder for you to settle with them. Because what I learned with them, one of the biggest reasons why they settled, even when they were coming after that amount of money and went down that low, they probably would have went even lower, because the first thing that debt collection companies want to do is to make their investment back for what they purchased debt for, and then everything is gravy. And if you let them get into a judgment phase, then they're spending more money, and they're going to try to come after you more, a lot harder, to get garnishments and things like that to take your money. So I'm telling you that if everything checks out, then you need to get into a settlement phase with them. And if they have a judgment against you, the same thing, you can do the validation, but because they had a judgment, unless it's under a certain period of time, every state is different. In my state of Wisconsin, you have 6 months. So if a judgment was placed on a person, they have 6 months. Even if it's a default judgment, you have 6 months to ask the judge to reopen it, and you go back into court and you can argue and you can see if that judgment can be lifted. But if it's past that open window that you have to go back in to get the judgment overturned or to have it looked at to see if it was a valid judgment, you're going to have to move into a settlement phase with the original creditor. So if you need any help, please go to our website, thecreditrepairshop.com. The links are below this video or above this video. And I hope you have a great day. And until next time, thank you.